First, let's give Harry a hand.
Here, Harry Breaux.
Well, as I was saying, Erin Allday, who did the initial interviews, she interviewed over 40 people. Many of them were from 50 plus. And out of the, I think, 40 or so people that she interviewed, she chose 8 people. I actually think she chose very well in terms of getting a sampling of people who could sort of be kind of iconic in our community and people who are doing different things. And I hope you all enjoyed it, but you know, this actually wasn't written for us. It was actually written to kind of sensitize people who think that this is no longer a problem. And many people, when they saw the initial, like some of the comments that were made, were not all that supportive, coming from a gay community and people who felt that, why are we only focusing on the tragedy? I don't know, but like for me, it's like I don't just see tragedy here. I see resilience. Yes. I see strength. I see compassion. I see caring. And so it was a bit. There was a bit of tension, I think, initially when it first came out, because at the premiere, I think it was actually probably the biggest event 50 plus has ever to be, and 130 people come to the screening, which was April 8, 2016. The Billies were actually there. You guys had a contingent of folks who came. And we had like maybe, I think 20 of the 130 people were people who had never been to an event and were stepping out of isolation for the first time. And
you're talking about the Castros?
The Castro, that was in April.
It was at the Castros. It was 130 of us, like, but it was 1,200.
Yeah, 1,200 people, but out of that, like 130 were from.
And it was a complete red carpet treatment. It was a premiere. It was spotlights. It was really it was a big deal.
Right, and just the point I wanted to make about that was that these stories need to be told. There's a healing that happens. I think every time Harry, when you heard him speak yesterday about some of his experiences and stuff, I think there's just a healing that comes from that. And I keep telling our folks that, you know what, we need heroes. We need people who are willing to lead us into this next phase of our lives, because you know it could be spectacular. It could also be, kind of dismal. But anyway, I hope that that people don't just see the tragedy of what we lived through, because it's like, it helped to shape us, and there's just a lot of things that I think are still yet to be unearthed from there. So,
I think what's resonating is that the idea of why this was done, or the value of it to us, is not these individual stories, but the impact that it has by being out there to be watched. Like a document, if you think of another one, Desert Migration is the only one that comes to mind, which was one down about Palm Springs. It has a more tragic tone to it than this one, in my opinion. But there are not a lot of movies out there about what we are and who we are and what we went through, is what I mean, not what we are, but what we went through. And there needs to be more attention on it, because like all LGBT history through history, it's been buried. They don't talk about us. They don't talk about LGBT people. There's not a lot of stories in textbooks about what LGBT people went through or go through, including the T. And I think just the fact that it's out here. I remember when Leonard Matlovich was on the cover of Time magazine. I don't know if you know who that was. Mm-hmm. Leonard Matlovich was the first soldier, was in the army, I think, to say, I'm openly gay, and you're going to have to deal with that. And the way they dealt with that was to throw him out. And it made Time magazine, so he was kind of famous, and this was maybe like 74 or 5, somewhere in there, I think, right? In the history there. But anyway. So, The Advocate which was the gay newspaper at that time, and I had friends that were on the staff at the Advocate, came out with a critique because Leonard Matlovich's story had been turned into a script that was turned into a TV show about it. It was the first regular broadcast show about a gay person, really, in history, ever. And they wrote an article about how the acting wasn't this and the that and the costumes, you know. And I called about 4 of them up that I knew. And I said, are you motherfuckers crazy? I said, you are going into like New York Review, this show, totally losing the point that it's the first show on national television about a gay person. It's like, that alone was enough for me to have it celebrated. This, to me, fits in that mold, too. There's not a lot of stories to my families and people's family about what it was like during those years. And they often, because it's a gay story, at least with my family, they love me and they support me, but don't tell me about it. And that's kind of the attitude. It's like, I don't want to know. I'm never going to ask you if you have a boyfriend. I'm never going to ask you anything about your life. But I love you and you totally accept it. And when I go visit them, I am. And when they came out here for a visit once, I asked my sister, I said, do you want to walk through the Castro with her husband, Chris? I said, do you want to walk through the Castro? I said, I want to ask you before we do this. And her response was like, yeah. I said, and what will Chris think about it? You know, big NRA Republican guy. She said, well, he'll be all right about it as long as they don't try to touch him. I thought, you know, what is that concept of who we are? So I take great pride in this and being in it, but I also take great joy in the fact that it's your story, your stories, and your friends' stories that died. That's the stories that are on the screen, not just mine and these other 5 people, 6 people.
We did a session with the public broadcast. What's it called? PBD. There were over 200 people trying to call in to share how much their stories touched them. And they were coming from all over the country. And it was so moving for me to be in the studio and to see all these things lit up, but they could only get like 8. But I said, this really says that there's a need for this, because there's people all over. That's my story. It's like, you might be in San Francisco, but this is happening here, and this is happening there, and we want to be heard. And so I really, I really felt that the piece captured that really, really well.
I read something once where it like takes 25 years before a big tragedy happens, like JFK getting assassinated. It was like 25 years before society could kind of talk about it or examine it more or something. There was something about 25 years spread. Guess where we are? So now we've got enough distance on it to where the younger people that weren't there and didn't know about it are starting to ask. They want to know what their history was. And so that to me is a lot of the value of this kind of thing. I remember when it first came out, it was like, well, why aren't there any women? You know, they suffered through AIDS too. And there was all these kind of like, why isn't it like this? And why is it like that? And I just go like, because it's like this. This is what it is. So there's a lot more to the story. And certainly I think y'all, an easy audience, you know that that's not all of us. But it represents all of us.
And if you actually look at the period that they're actually trying to document, it's actually pretty diverse, because the first round of AIDS cases were in gay white men, but the fact that they included someone who's African American and who's been positive for over, those stories were just stories that did get told. Jesus, I think Jesus is about maybe 28 years positive, something about like what I have, but they included a Latino and someone who represented more than just the Latino community. It's actually pretty diverse, because one of the things about We Were Here, the first one that was done, it's like, this is a story of 8 people, but like, well, we were there. I was there at that event. My story's not up there. And it kind of had that sort of, but we knew the people that were in. Eileen, who's in this show, was also in that show. And we knew that, and we understood that this was their time. But now that this is starting to, in San Francisco, 60% of the people living with HIV are over the age of 50. 84% are over the age of 40. And so it's just going to get larger. By the year 2020, across the country, 70% of the people living with HIV will be over the age of 50. And you see differences between someone who tested positive before ARVs, before 1996, before ARVs were available. Someone who, there's almost like every 5 years there's a different experience because that's how things change very quickly.
And this
talked a
film made
lot.
the circuit. It went to Spain and Italy. There was an opening of the premiere in Amsterdam,
Oh, yeah.
Barcelona. I mean, the film traveled the world.
What they didn't really, it was their first documentary, and Aaron Bredhauer and Tim Hewson, who filmed it, made it, did the editing, the whole bit. It was their first, and they didn't know what they were doing in a lot of ways, and they didn't keep all the records down about releases and all that. So there was a whole big legal kerfuffle about releasing it, and it still hasn't been officially released.
Yeah.
It's on the San Francisco Chronicle website, which you can tell people to go and sign up for the first month, which is 99 cents, then watch the movie and then cancel the subscription if you want. That's one way to do it, and I asked about it, and they said, yeah, that's kind of the way. I forgot where I was going with that, but anyway.
Questions, comments?
You said it was their first film.
That was their first film, and they didn't know what they're doing, so it's not released out, is what happened.
Whose first film?
The Chronicle.
The Chronicle, the people that made it, and the Chronicle. Newspapers are having a hard time, so they've kind of come up with this idea of writing a nice article, doing some web stuff about it, and a documentary. It's kind of a package idea. Newspapers have started around the country. They generally do it about some business person or something. This is the first one on gay people that I know of, and the first one on long-term AIDS survivors.
When was this film? When was this film?
When? They followed us around for about a year, it seems, probably a year ago.
It started in 2014, and it filmed through most of 2015, and then it premiered in April
And they had to put it together, and it came
So
out last May.
April 20.
Wow.
So it's almost a year old.
So Vince, I remember about a year ago you sent me a whole packet of grant proposals as sample information about the population that's being served through this. And for me it was a big education about the different kinds of at-risk, the reason for outreach to this particular group. I wonder if you could open up on that a little bit. What kinds of risks, what kinds of issues, what's the need for the intervention?
So there's quite a number of issues. They're seeing things that have traditionally showed up in populations who are 70 and older, and seeing them in people who are 50. There's issues around what they call polypharmacy. Many of the guys who are positive are on tons of medications, like so many medications, and I was telling someone I was at a LGBT dementia presentation, and the person presenting goes, I think gay men take a pill for everything. And I'm like, you might be right. And she's like, well, that causes problems when you get hospitalized and you don't have a list of everything you're taking, so people get under-medicated, get over-medicated because they're not sure what, so it's having somebody keep track of that. Falls. I know we all joke about getting old, and like I've actually had trouble standing up and down, but you're starting to see things like arthritis and things that usually happen older, happening around 50, sometimes late 40s. High blood pressure, things that are much more serious later on are showing up much early. Heart disease. There's been many, for a while there, it just seemed like there were just like all these activists who were long-term survivors were just having heart attacks. Kidney failures. It's like the first line of medications that came out in 1996 were very toxic. So there's some toxicity issues around that. Like I was diagnosed with lactic acidosis in 1999, which is a condition from the first line of meds. I don't think I've ever totally recovered from that, but I've actually been on a stable regimen. The medications now are much better, but some of them absorb bone density, like affect bone density and things like that. Cognitive, like I think something like 95% of people who are positive and over the age of 50 have some kind of a cognitive disorder, pretty high.
95%?
95%. It's really high. They just did a, I mean, they're doing some, hasn't been a lot of research done. What I sent you was pretty much like, a condensed version, but now there's quite a bit. We're actually launching something called Research in Older Adults with HIV. We're launching that next month. We just completed the pilot stage. It'll be done in San Francisco and in Oakland. Let's see what else. Oh, the other issue that we're having now is all the doctors who knew these guys and knew us are retiring. So you're getting younger doctors who are who don't know about side effects, who don't know what the population has been through, and so they kind of go by standards. Like this is the standard treatment, and we go from there. Many of the guys don't like that because they know their bodies, they know what they've been through. And I don't know, this is probably a correct assessment, but there's a certain arrogance with younger doctors who are just out of
Med school.
med school, like they know everything. And so that's been quite a huge issue amongst our population, is that people can't find doctors that they like once their doctors are retiring. And mental health, there hasn't been anybody trained to actually deal, like there's trauma, but nobody's actually really specialized in this, and so there's a lot of people who don't, when we make a mental health referral, we really have to try to get it right, because somebody who's asking for mental health support, you make a bad referral, they don't go back usually. And it seems to be, unfortunately, that seems to be the norm most, like they don't have a good experience with that. So I'm always looking for therapists that I can refer to people to. You have some issues with the new administration, like the Affordable Care Act, if that goes. One of the things that San Francisco did was they moved, I think 50,000 people off of Healthy San Francisco and onto private insurance. So if we lose that, a good number of positive folks who got insurance yet will not have insurance. We'll have to figure a way to cover that. Another?
You mentioned mental health, but could you just be a little bit more specific? Depression, isolation?
There's depression, post-traumatic stress. There's depression. A lot of folks, what they're saying is they're consistently re-traumatized. Like over, and it just keeps happening over and over again, and then many people don't have the tools to kind of navigate that, and so they end up doing things which keep re-traumatizing them, and then they get stuck. And so that's been something that's been hard, Many people are on fixed incomes, and so that leads to shame and depression and a lot of things. And then many people pay over 50%, a more common number, 70 to 80% of their income goes to their rent. So there's food security issues, so nutrition, and especially if you're on a bunch of medications, you need to have good nutrition because that can create some cognitive stuff as well. Yes.
Can you just speak to the research as to why there's money to bring men to Billy gatherings, about community and gathering that's related to why you're here?
Well, one of the biggest things that has happened, one of the ways that people coped was to isolate themselves. One of the things that we observed in the 90s, if you were doing care work, was that people, to be independent was a good thing, but many people use it as a way to kind of disconnect, or were just so over the whole AIDS thing with the loss, the multiple losses, the stigma, all that kind of stuff, but they just isolated. And what has started to happen in recent years, Let's Kick Ass, which was AIDS Survivor Syndrome, it's an organization, started it, and so at their first town hall, 400 people came out. When the San Francisco AIDS Foundation did a similar meeting a month later, 300 people came out. This is my opinion, so it's not something that's etched in stone, but what happened was they didn't know what to do with those people who came out. And so many of them actually went right back into isolation because they got all excited and said, oh, this is going to lead to something different. And it really didn't lead to anything, other than the fact that 50 Plus has been successful on our experience, and what we've actually been able to do with the Billies, I think, has been remarkable in terms of getting people out of HIV and into looking at other things. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, let me throw one thing in there. Jesus went to the World Global AIDS Conference. I mean, this is the biggest one in the world that they do every year. This was in Durban, South Africa this year. It was 3 days. 3 days. There was one, not even a workshop, one event that addressed long-term survivors, as opposed to younger people that are on PrEP and how to avoid getting AIDS and all that kind of thing. There was only one on the people that did have it, and it was because he brought a copy, just like I did, of this film. And at the last session, they showed this film. There was no other mention of long-term AIDS survivors at the World AIDS Organization conference in Durban, South Africa last spring, last fall.
There are some reasons for this. I've actually checked into this, and many of the developed countries, like in Europe, they actually treat seniors much better. There's actually not as much stigma around this there, but they actually have better care, and they have access to medication. So a lot of the issues that we see here are not really issues. In developing countries, they actually don't have, I don't think in most of the developing countries they have anybody who's lived more than 10 years. Because almost always if you get an HIV diagnosis, you're usually dead within 5 years because most of the people, they don't get the kind of medications we get. So there's a lot of reasons for that, but it actually is an issue that's not real, nobody thought about it. And so this film is doing huge things to raise awareness around that. Yes, and then another morning now.
So I was curious, you were talking about mental health issues. Is there also an increase in drug or alcohol issues as well?
I can tell you since I started working this, I've increased my drug and alcohol issue. I'm teasing. No, there actually is. There's been quite a lot of people have actually gone back into self-medicating as a way to deal with trauma. And the number one thing is alcohol. And there's a lot of things that people think they don't have a reason to live, so they just, they drink themselves, and because of other complications around the liver and organs, they end up getting sick. And some people just get so depressed they stop taking their meds, and then along with the drinking and drugs, that actually speeds it up as well.
And crystal meth is still a big problem in the city.
Right, and it is actually it is an issue around people who are, people don't think that people who are living with HIV are doing drugs, but they actually are. Someone said they have nothing else to do. Why not? But it's just an issue that, and there aren't really a lot of specific for older folks. There's not really programs that are specific. One of our programs, Stonewall, does do some of the, but now I'm getting folks asking, so how do we address people who are older? And I said, when in doubt, just use their name. It's like you can't figure out what to call them. Just ask them what they want to be referred to. Don't let that be, if someone's in front of you and needs services, don't let that be the issue. You can think of something, I'm sure they've been called worse. So just start a conversation with them, keep them connected, and if they want help, please try to keep them connected to services. Because once you lose people, it's very hard to get them back. Ken and then.
Has there been any research into, they had Peter Green, who was thrown out of his apartment for 30 years, people being displaced from their homes and the psychological impact of that on their health?
Interestingly, there are no clear stats. There are about 7,000 homeless people in San Francisco. Those are not people who came to San Francisco and became homeless. Those are people in San Francisco who were evicted from their homes. There's no clear stats about what the age is, if they're people who are disabilities. We do know the significant number of LGBT, but the city has not kept good records on that kind of stat. Anecdotally, you would hear, because mostly it is older people who are getting kicked out of rent-controlled apartments.
Yes.
A lot of protections that we had in the 90s don't seem to be in place to protect people anymore. So What we do have in our community is legal referral panel,
Okay.
ALRP, and they actually, if someone goes to like one of the tenants unions or one of the housing places, if they're positive or have any connection to HIV at all, they immediately get referred to ALRP, which kind of puts them ahead because there's a ton of housing cases. But the issue is that all you can really do once that situation starts is it just delays it, usually by about
And it
a year.
stresses people out.
And it stresses them, and then they give up. That's the
Yeah.
hardest thing.
I have a couple of questions. Harry, I think it was you in the film that pointed out, I'm going to try harder. And how rare is it that you were able to live this long? Is it 1 in a million, 1 in 1,000? And does that tie into the title of the film, Last Man Standing? And do you think maybe you felt more positive, and is that contributed to you being still alive?
Well, my little journey started, like when I was 20 years old or something. I became a hippie and a vegetarian. So for many years, I've been dealing with like living a clean diet. I was living out in the woods, so a lot of fresh air. I've asked 100,000 times why me, but I don't know. I didn't do anything special other than that, living well and trying to take care of myself. But, I've had hepatitis, I've had syphilis, gonorrhea, thousands of partners.
Some of the two
All through the baths in the 70s, all of that. I look back and I go like, here were all these thousands of fucking people that I was playing around and in with a lot of. And how I ended up staying, not going down during the 80s, 90s, when I almost did, actually. And it was just a coincidence. So, it's kind of some kind of, to me, it's some kind of mystic or metaphysical guidance or something, because the timing blows me away. I was a long-term progressor. It says I was diagnosed in 84. 84 is when they did the test and I found out. But they had tested blood samples from 79 that they had on file in CDC, and 81. 79 was negative, 81 was positive. So I say 80, So I say 80 is when I turned positive. 80 is also when I happened to be living in Houston for a year or 2 years, and it was where that part about my fingernails was when, the way this film's put together, it's not all in order anymore. And so in 1980 is when I had this, I woke up at 3 in the morning, like flush, like I had water sprayed on me. Felt fluish a little bit and achy. Went back to sleep. I didn't even want to get up. I didn't feel like, I didn't have the energy. I just laid there, went back to sleep, and woke up in the morning feeling fine. And within a few months, it was when I was moving back to San Francisco. So I came back to San Francisco and started hearing the stories and what was going on and witnessing it and finding out these friends were dying and all that stuff. And then when I got the results of the test in 84, that's when I figured that's when it turned. So why it took that long for mine to change, I don't know. Why it was a slow progression to where I never got sick from 80 to 96. 96 is when I came out to visit. I was living in New Orleans at the time. And I basically thought I had the flu. I felt achy on the plane. I got off the plane, spent a couple of days visiting people. And on the third day, it's like I'm exhausted. I'll just stay in bed. And these friends would come in to pick me up to take me to their house. So we went on with that plan. I got to their house, and that's when that occurred that she came in. The next day, she said, you have 106 temperature and you can't get out of bed. So either lay here and die and I'll wipe your ass, or you have to say, take me to the hospital. And they were doing that with that bit where I was laying in the bed and I said, something came up and said, you gotta fucking try. So I said, take me to the hospital, and they took me in at 8 at night. They drew blood, they gave me 2 aspirin, and we sat there until 3:30 in the morning. And they came back at 3 with no information. They just said sit and wait. They came back at 3:30 in the morning and they said, Mr. Breaux, your room is ready. I said, what is it, And they said, oh, you've got these 3 diseases, cystis pneumoniae, MAC, and cryptococcal meningitis. Any one of them could have taken me out. For a week, I was unconscious, basically, certainly out of it, with this juice pumping through me. My sister said I called her and talked and all. I remember absolutely nothing of the first week. And at the end of the first week, it was showing that the virus actually was coming down. And it was another 2 weeks before I got out. But then I got out, I was 140 pounds, and I had 20 T cells. And I had neuropathy from the first drugs they gave me, because the clinic, they put me right in the clinic. I went right on the cocktail, first drugs.
You weren't taking anything up until
Not until now. All those years, nothing. And it was just a real, very, very, I mean, over years, slow decline of T cells. And when I went in the hospital, they were like 180 or something. But by the time I got out, they were 20 because they were still getting killed off. And the neuropathy was so bad, Jesus talks about it, I couldn't let a shower water hit my feet. I couldn't sleep with covers on it. The covers had to be folded up with my feet sticking out the edge of the bed. Nothing could touch it. I had I had the bathroom right there, and I had a piss bottle right here. Because just standing up enough to put the weight on my feet to get to that bathroom was too much. So, and that probably, I mean, it's still kind of a little bit there, but it's pretty much cleared up. But it went on for a good 2 years before I could kind of ignore it. But even now, like I couldn't walk on a gravel, or, if you cross an extension cord and step on it while you're crossing, I'd just jump. It would be insanely stuff. So, yeah, I know other people that have survived and are doing as well as I am, and some of them are, but a lot of, some of them are. And, was it the good eating? Was it the life? Was it the drugs? Was it not? I don't know.
So Marty and then George.
But so are you one of the million, or what is the percentage?
Pardon?
Are you one of the million, or what is, and is that why they called it
Well,
last man
Harry
standing?
is certainly
No
one in a
stats.
million.
The last man standing.
I'm one in a million, but
Right.
I don't know about it back then.
The team Last Man Standing, I think it came from Peter Green, the guy who passed away. I think he just mentioned that we're the last man standing, and that's kind of how it's done. Because initially they were going to call it something else, and everybody's like, no, you can't call it that. And so this just came up, and I think it's a good title for it. Martin?
Yeah, I probably embraced the virus for about 38 to 41 years. So your scenario, I not completely, but I can identify with. Where it's a different experience for me is I no longer think of myself as a long-term survivor. I think of myself as a long-term flourisher. And I'm wondering, is there any kind of small movement in the direction of reframing it? Because many of us are flourishers. We're not simply surviving, we're flourishing. I can only talk for myself, but I know there are others who identify with that. And in my spiritual life, if I say I'm surviving, I reinforce surviving. If I tell the truth to myself that I'm flourishing, it reinforces flourishing. And I'm not in denial at that time either. So I'm just wondering.
Well, there's what happens at our level.
That happens.
And, we always encourage people to self-identify and whatever makes you happy, but then there's also what happens at a policy level and in terms of, because long-term survivors, kids who are born with this, who are now in their 30s, and they can be considered long-term survivors. They weren't gay. It's possible they did not have it as hard as some of our folks had it. But so these conversations are happening, but it's, we're still like in a moving target. Like there's just not been enough information, and there's just not been enough agreement. Like there are, the definition that they're kind of coming for long-term survivor now is that if you tested before 1996, you had a different experience, you didn't have meds and whatever, but if you tested after that, almost always you got into medication really fairly quickly after that. So these are all things that are being figured out now. They're trying to do away with the term AIDS, because now it's seen more as HIV disease. Like there's a continuum of different, like there's disabling HIV disease, there's HIV positive, HIV infected, but people are living. It's just a very different condition than it was when we were going through the 80s and 90s. I mean, we're seeing pneumocystis pneumonia in people who are virally suppressed. We're seeing KS, which is not the kind of KS that was prevalent in the 80s, but it's normally what's seen with old age, like usually in your 70s.
Right.
So, but we're seeing it in people in their 50s and 60s. We're seeing it in people also who are virally suppressed and on medications and undetectable. Well, virally suppressed is undetectable. So it's a time for learning for a lot of the doctors, but it's one of the reasons why the Golden Compass, which just opened, it's the new addition to Ward 86, but it's one of the reasons why it's important, because there's no other clinic like that on the West Coast and possibly in the country, and there's really no clinic like it in the world that's looking at these issues.
And what's unique about it also is that General Hospital, the clinic there, the AIDS ward, is already set up to serve people that go to General Hospital, that have no insurance, that, whatever, that they use General Hospital. I have insurance and I go to a different hospital, but Golden Compass is an exception to where I can go access its services to. Very first thing, General Hospital had to agree, basically, to open that up, which is, it's kind of been sacrosanct that if you have insurance, you go over here. If you have none, you go here. And so that's all being changed because long-term survivors. Because they have to serve us, they have to take care of us, and they want the information. So they realized that they were only getting information from like a lower socioeconomic level. So they weren't able to get the research. So this is going to give them research that's a more full picture. Because people that are doing well like me are going to be able to take care of their use their services.
Thank you.
What, I think that some of us survived, some of us died right away, some became long-term progressors, and I think it has to do with genetics, with the resistant gene. And they trace this back to Northern Europe, to the plagues of the 13th, 14th, 15th centuries. And some of us have that gene. I had that gene. The guys that did not have that gene, they most likely got the disease and then died right away. Some of us have this 1X genetic gene that let us be long-term survivors. And there are some people who have this double gene that no matter how much they expose themselves to the virus, IV drugs or exchange of bodily fluids, they will never become HIV positive. So it does have to do with genetics, and this is, in our own history.
There is research to support this, and there are people who they found these conditions. But the other factor that they've seen in people who survive are people who connect with community, which again is one of the reasons why what kind of work we're doing this weekend is important. People who find their passion, connect with the passion, that seems to do something. People who do service, who find a call for service and find a way to put their talents into that. I know that in the 90s, in the API community that I was serving, the Asian Pacific Islander community I was serving, every time someone came out, it added at least 6 months to a year onto their life. Like they would be so sick, and then all of a sudden they would come out and tell their family or whoever that they were gay, and then they would end up getting better initially, and they would add like 6 months. And so that's why I'm a big thing about telling your truth and giving people options to, because many people fear being disowned by their families and stuff, things like that. But I said, but if you tell them, then at least you know, and it's not just speculation, and you know where you can go with that. You don't have to put all your energy into this. And so, it's pretty extreme. The API community is very small. The fear was just incredible, and people went to great lengths to keep their secrets. And the other thing that I learned from doing this, you have just no control over this. Like you could go to, you could have all the money in the world, you could try to pay to keep it a secret, but in the end, someone always finds out the truth. And so I just tell people, look, you can spare yourself and me a lot of heartache and just go through with this. And everybody that I ever did that with ended up living a few more months, or at least got better initially. And anyway, I won't say any more about that. But are there other questions? Yes.
Yeah, the AIDS ride that comes up, it seems like it raises tens and tens of millions. Is there money being well spent? I mean, and
Well, that's actually how 50 Plus was initially funded through the AIDS ride. So we were funded through unrestricted funds, and then when the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation Fund gave funding for 5 years, they basically funded what we were already doing. And so that was just a godsend because we were actually able to build on what was successful and not have to create new things to kind of feed the grant. But those are very important because the other thing that's happening is funding for AIDS is really drying up. You know, and I think it's one of the things that I really feel that policymakers, organizations should think about. So we actually get to zero, which San Francisco will probably be the city in the world that's the closest to succeeding in that. It's like you can't call yourself an
Zero
AIDS
really.
It's a program that San Francisco pushes that's getting to zero, like no new infections, zero new infections.
Zero infections, zero AIDS deaths, zero stigma. It came out of the UN, and so it's something that the whole world embraced, and San Francisco is probably the only city that will come anywhere close to being successful. They've already pretty close, like I think they've reduced new infections by 80%. But at the same time, if you have no AIDS, then you're not going to get AIDS fund. There's not going to be funding for it. So it's something that they need to think about, and why I think that they need to plan for this population, because if you're not, I mean, many of them didn't plan to be alive at this point, and so we're seeing what's happening with that. And so for the organizations not to plan for them to live, you know, it's kind of a double, I don't know what you call it, but it's like it compounds the problem, because the population didn't plan, the organizations that are serving them are not planning. So we're going to have a real problem in a few years, you know. We could actually have, I mean, I think for the first couple of years that the new administration is in DC will be okay. But like around the second or third year, there are going to be some challenges with all the different funding cuts that are happening. But for the first couple of years, San Francisco will be fine. But that's why I think we need to plan now for what's going to happen later.
Jason did the California AIDS ride. He's about to do it for the third time.
Yeah, Jason's absolutely amazing. He is going to have his own team. It's called Disabled Heroes. And he is just tireless. Wow. We've honored him several times for his work. And he's not even 50, but he comes to 50 plus. And he's incredible. You know, I mean, when he talks and when he asks for anything, it's like I just want to make sure we get that for him because he's just such a good soul. So, other questions? I don't know what time it is and how much time we have, but do people have?
We'll kind of wrap it up, I think. Mayor Hood's here to do a little thank you ritual.
I'm honored.
How about Paul, right? You're going to do a little Paul thing.
I'm honored by your presence. I think this is very inspiring for us. And it means a lot. Thank you.
I want to just add a little thank you and more to Vince. This man's an incredible resource. He's also an incredible driving force for what you're hearing about. It's going to be a little modest maybe, but almost all of what's going on in San Francisco on HIV and aging, this is the man they're looking to for information and asking what to do about it.
And he makes things happen now. He has things happening for us now. All these other organizations are planning, or they have these things that they're working on, or they're setting up these programs. So, you know, we need help now.
And the way I got into this movie is that he is on a city work group called HIV and Aging Work Group, which is city put together, the mayor's office and other officials, to recommend what we need, to kind of clarify what it is that we need in this point as HIV long-term survivors and AIDS survivors. And so it was that work group, and he had asked me to be on it, and I sat on it along with Ken Hornsby. And so I kind of just sit in as an observer, really. But one day, he has these speakers coming. One day, Aaron Alday came to tell us about this project they were working on, and to ask Vince and the work group to let him know let her know if there were any people they knew that they could recommend. I happened to be sitting next to her at the table. So I just wrote my number down and slid it over to her. Because it seemed like nobody else at the table was a long-term survivor. A couple of them were, but you know, they were more like in their official hats, whereas I was just some crazy queer hanging out there. So, you know, I gave that to her, and that's how she ended up interviewing me. It was just that coincidence of that. But that work group is what has made the recommendations clear that the city will probably honor to giving money to help people stay in their homes, to help people with their insurance, whatever else is needed. And I think this is a safe statement. He is the head of all that. He is the person that pulled all that together.
Yes.
The other ones may have asked. He knows the role he played. Some of the other official kind of people may have asked him to take on stuff. But it takes a passion and a compassion that's inside this man that you don't see a lot of.
Yes.
And, you know, it's like, it's magic. It's starting to happen. They're paying attention. They're creating ways to help us. And like George was pointing out, this man did it, and it's probably not happening anywhere else.
And it's not so bad to look at.
50 plus, you know, we started showing them at 50 plus and like, oh my God, you survived too. Oh, Steve Richmond, you're still alive. Oh my God. So we found each other, and they're like these heads that were popping up out of isolation that we found each other. And so it's this really close group of 50 plus in the city.
And I also want to say that it's not so clear yet. I mean, what I want to say about that is the amount of people that are HIV-infected long-term survivors living in the city, there's thousands of us. There's only maybe 40 that come to 50 plus. So there's still a lot of people out there that can be reached and that can be given an advantage.
Can we talk a little about the HIV negative people who get supported?
Right, well, that's actually what I was thinking. So one of the other pieces that the long-term survivor movement does include is we include positive and negative. And trying to figure out a way, that's where the LGBT aging part comes in, because many people who are in the age of 50 live through the epidemic. And my opinion is that, you know what, didn't we go through enough separation back then? Can't we just like figure out how we can do this? You know, lesbians took care of us when we were sick, and to not have anything for them, you know, in their older age, I think is sad. But I guess, you know, for myself, I just don't think you could have lived through the 80s and 90s and not want to do anything you could possibly do to prevent that from repeating itself. So whether it is preventing new infections or just having people have a better experience in their old age, because one of the things that I fear under the new administration is that this is a generation that the country ignored. And so when you do it again, the first time it was unconscionable, whatever, to do it, to have it happen again, to come and take everything that they worked for away just because of your politics or whatever, that's just, you know, that, I just can't even imagine that. And we have an opportunity in San Francisco. The mayor is kind of coming around to a different sort of political stance, but Supervisor Jeff Sheehy, who's also a long-term survivor, is looking to do something to kind of make sure that the population gets served. And so we're working with him on that. And
Scott Wiener was the supervisor, the gay supervisor of San Francisco's supervisor group.
District 8.
And he has become a senator in California's Senate. So Mayor Lee appointed Jeff Sheehy to replace him. Jeff Sheehy is the first open HIV person on the Board of Supervisors.
Wow.
So that, you know, that gets noted now. He's HIV positive. And that's a first. And this is 2017.
Mayor Lee did that?
Mayor Lee did appoint him.
Mayor Lee appointed him.
The first we know of, at least.
He's an old activist.
He's the first open.
Yeah, he's done a lot of gay
That's the most
stuff.
positive thing I've heard
Yeah.
about him.
And he was very active in ACT UP and all that stuff in those years. So he's well versed. Since then, he's settled down, gotten married, and has a child. He and his husband are raising a little girl, I think. Yeah. So he's a little more conservative now, but still he's very active and engaged. And being the first HIV positive person gives another little credence boost there.
When you talk about the definition of long-term survivors, it's not only those of us who are HIV positive, who lived with the disease and or who had our experience, but it's our brothers who are HIV negative, who took care of us, who lost their lovers, who lost their friends, who had gone through it with us. So you guys are all long-term survivors, whether you're positive or negative. You lost friends along the way, memorials.
And then just to tie back to the Billies, is that the heart-centered approach, to me that's the only approach that's ever worked in this. It's like if you get too much in your head, if you get whatever, it's like it just doesn't work. But I think that that's, and so part of when Harry approached me about partnering, I thought, yeah, that's where we go. We have a 35-year history, which is about as old as the epidemic is. I think it's about 35 or 36 years. But this is the approach, from the heart, where people took care of their communities. This is what worked, and it's, I think, what will work as we go into this next phase. Yes.
One thing that was really humbling for me was Jesus created a Facebook page for long-term survivors, not just for San Francisco, but it's global, all over the country. And I'm sorry.
It's global.
Yeah, global.
It's
and what, in my mind, things get polarized to in San Francisco, there's a lot of education, and long-term survivors generally have access to care, and then there's the younger people who are getting the new treatments. But on Susan's page, you see a lot of people who are long-term, people in their 30s, 40s, 20s, who are not getting treatment, who are getting PCP, who are struggling with their lives, and that was eye-opening for me. It's not like the last man standing. It's not like we're the last of the people age and the new generation will have it easy. It's still very much of an active illness out there.
In the southern United States, in the African American community, it's devastating right now. It's happening in Alabama and Georgia and Mississippi, the way it was happening to us out here.
Men and women, right? There's more women being involved than the new.
It was from black men going out on the down low and getting it and bringing it home to their wives. And that happened to a lot of white women as well.
The statistics in people of color outside of San Francisco are almost like they were in San Francisco.
Yeah, they're dying.
In the 90s, 80s and 90s. People of color, like DC, there's a segment of the population there where they say 1 in every 2 or 3 adults, or 2 out of 3 adults are positive, and part of it is this, they don't know it. Part of it's some of it's drug use, but it's disproportionately hitting communities of color outside of San Francisco.
You mentioned HIV and aging, or HIV and AIDS long-term survivor Facebook page. That the person that put that together is Jesus.
Yeah.
So, and if you're not on it and you're on Facebook, look it up. HIV/AIDS long-term survivor.
Is there more that we as Billies can do to outreach to long-term survivors?
Well, I think some of that we're starting. I mean, one of the other reasons is 50 plus is a program. The fund can go at any time. And my hope is that at least if people are integrated into a community somewhere, then, like if the AIDS Foundation goes out of business, at least, folks are connected here, and that there's a whole network of people all through Northern California. And so I think what we're doing now is a start to some of that. It's a community response. It's people coming together, sharing food, sharing meals, building.
I think we should be able to get in front of the line. Would be one thing that those could help us with for dinner or breakfast.
I'll second that.
So we'll take a couple more questions, because I think there's going to be...
Is there more?
But I was really charged up putting this
question that Michael just asked, with the ideas that have been bubbling around here, that perhaps Billy's ought to do something with 50 plus on your territory, and maybe more public education, and as a way of getting outreach.
I mean, that's what we're discussing, so I think that will come along, and I think that also the inclusion of transmission, if there's something we can do around
Yes,
doing a presentation with that.
It's very interesting.
Back in the early days, I was on the transgender task force, and I was the only non-transgender person on the task force.
Okay.
And I didn't understand how could we not include them. We're talking about not being included, and we're actually considering we're not going to include them. And so it's something that I've always tried to do in my work to make sure there's an inclusion, because a lot of the stories get lost and people don't realize the contributions. And so I'm always trying to, and like when we at Strut, when we said that we are gay, bi, and trans men, I'm like, that has to be meaningful. You can't just say you're going to include them and not have anything, do anything for them. You know, you have to be clear what you're offering. And so I think that would be a good, you know, something good for us to do.
Like a public forum
sort of thing? Yeah, just to kind of raise awareness and people feel comfortable, but to learn about some of the issues, because, you know, San Francisco is a sanctuary city.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, but I think everybody needs to have their moment in the sun, because otherwise we just end up being, you know, compartmentalized again. And so we're always trying. I actually chair the transgender inclusion work group at the foundation, and so we've been able to do things around employment. Like we start meetings by people stating what their pronouns are and what you feel comfortable with. When someone is onboarded, we look at those kinds of things. And so for me, that's how I pay service to a community that supported me in the early days of my work and when I was not well. So I try to, you know, pay that forward. So that's what I'm hoping, that we can figure out a way that we can make that work. I mean, we don't have all that much money. 3,000 is not that much. But with a few committed individuals, I think we can do some pretty, you know, spectacular things. Synchronistic. So we could keep talking, but I think people are tired. And this is not actually. It's a wonderful topic, but it's also a heavy topic. And so I just want to tell people, you know, as you leave here tonight, you know, to be gentle with yourselves, because you may have triggers, and you know, some of the things that we talked about that we're trying to work through, we're trying to work through as an organization, could actually make themselves known to you. You know, when you see something like that, it's just hard not to have it bring up stuff that, you know. So just be aware that if you're feeling really off or whatever, that you take care of yourself and whatever you need to do. And then I also just want to thank Harry. Because when I asked him if he would be interested in doing this, I said, Aaron's going to come and it would be great. But he didn't have to do it. He didn't have to do it. And I asked Aaron, I said, can you focus on people whose stories are not like me? Like, I'm out in front of cameras, I get my picture taken.
Beauty buses.
I'm everywhere. And that's not going to move people, but it's the stories of the people who are struggling with this every day, who are not getting, you know. And so I asked her to focus on that, because Jesus wasn't as famous when he started this as he became over the year, which was great, because he kind of grew in proportion. But there was a lot of other people who wanted to be in the film. And I'm like, but you're everywhere. Why don't we give people who don't get a chance to speak, you know, people who are just as much, you know. And so she agreed with that. And I want to thank Harry for that, because he didn't have to do it. And
Oh, the last word. First, it's just, you know, my heart is filled. You've got to see this. I know you guys. You're the Billies, and it saved my life. It added more time to it, I'm sure. And I was just very grateful that you all came and that you stayed through the audio part that we had to deal with until we figured that out. It's a story that goes on. It just goes on. I'm available for questions or any explanations or whatever you have for it. So please never hesitate to come and ask me about something.
Ours too?
Other than that, let's see, I don't know, I want to thank everybody, I want to thank everybody that had anything to do with it, including watching it. So I'm just very grateful to be a part of this community. I'm grateful that I was able to participate in something that is significant to the outside world as well as to the Billies. I never forget that the Billies started as an organization to reach out and help people that were having trouble with this disease, that were living in the country and didn't have a lot of support. And the hard part is to think that, wow, we made it through that, now it's done. And the hardest part is to realize that, no, it's not. It's still going on, and it's going to go on for the rest of our lives. So whatever you feel moved to do, however you feel moved to look at it or hold it in your heart or wherever, take the step and do it. Taking a step forward is a sign of commitment. And until we make a sign of commitment, we can always back out. But once we make a commitment, the universe moves in ways we cannot even imagine ahead of time to support that manifestation of energy. I hope we all have one of those moments that we can change the world. And it just comes by being dedicated, in my opinion, to believing that this world is worth saving.
And I'm a long-term surviving.
And yes, there are questions about the words to use, flourishing, surviving, all that. As Vince pointed out, and I support too, it's like we can spend hours trying to decide which word to use, or we can use a word and spend those hours functioning to fulfill whatever that's needed. So as much as it may be another word is better or nicer or feels more comfortable, I invite a person to use that for themselves. But I think you should get used to the idea that you're going to see survivor used in relationship to this problem or this circumstance. So,
Right the fuck on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Glad we got this one.
Yeah.
Thank you.